Back in my first 2 years of university, I had a professor who said, if you can't do it, teach. And if you can't teach, consult. Now, this isn't necessarily to say that all consultants are hoaxes and it's all a big scam, but there is something to be said about the boom in consulting and the fact that more people are spending time making courses and telling you how to do something and make a bunch of money instead of using their own stratagem and making a bunch of money themselves. Now, of course, we have the really big consultancies, and this isn't necessarily talking about them. This is more so looking inwardly. And what I've been struggling with when it comes to, not being on the consulting side, not being on the telling people how to do their job side, but rather actually building something for yourself. I'm going to use a few examples. I'm going to take the words of Steve Jobs, but then I'm also going to ask a bunch of questions that I've been asking myself, and you can use it to reflect on your own, because I think it's a really big problem that a lot of business people and business students and anyone who is entrepreneurial or aspires to make a good amount of money struggles with. But of course, before that, my name's Mr.Yyetti. And I believe that the way that you conduct your personal life is the same way that you conduct business and vice versa. If that sounds like your cup of tea, make sure you subscribe so you stay notified of all of our future videos. Now, let's talk about consulting. Now, I've made a video about this in the past. It was a short one and it was before this setup. So maybe take a look at that. I mean, you don't have to. But this is something that I have had, I am fighting every single urge to not do. It is very easy to, especially as you go through university or you learn something that's really big, you think, man, I would love to teach this to somebody else. But I strongly believe that business people and business students ought to aspire to build things. And I think that most business people do aspire to build things. It's the how or the what that really makes them do a double take. I think that it is the harder thing to do, and it also requires that you have an idea and that you develop a market and you have all these other prerequisites of business. But that's what business actually is. And sometimes, consulting kind of feels like a cop-out. You have this small problem that somebody who's actually, being entrepreneurial has, and you fix that tiny little problem and you feel like you're building up experience. And of course, you can iterate on this quite a bit. And there's lots of businesses that might have this problem and you're helping each and every one of them with it. It's a little bit like, being a handyman and, you don't necessarily have to just have your house and only build in your house. If you're really good at plumbing, you ought to, go out and, help other people with their plumbing because they can't do it themselves, right? But I feel like business is a little bit different in that, yes, let's say you're a marketer and you're very good at building out customer pipelines. For as long as you do not build your own business and you don't start a pipeline from zero to wherever you take it, and you're not building out the rest of the context around that pipeline, it is a little bit, that experience isn't worth as much weight as somebody who did do that process, right? And again, I do not want a bunch of consultants thinking I'm coming for them, right? I'm speaking at least in a more reflective manner in that I've aspired for consulting for a while. And, it's a lot of business students' dream to be inside of a consultancy, You're told that, a year in consulting is worth 5 years inside of the industry and stuff, right? Because of all the different industries and clients and perspectives and situations that you find yourself in. But the thing is, and Steve Jobs said it better, you're painting a 1 or maybe 2-dimensional picture. And you don't get the 3D complexity and depth that comes with building out a business and a customer base and a product.
So how many from consulting? Oh, that's bad. You should do something. No, seriously, I don't think there's anything inherently evil in consulting. I think that without owning something over an extended period of time, like a few years, where one has a chance to take responsibility for one's recommendations, where one has to see one's recommendations through all action stages and accumulate scar tissue for the mistakes and pick oneself up off the ground and dust oneself off, one learns a fraction of what one can. You're coming in and making recommendations and not owning the results, not owning the implementation, I think is a fraction of the value and a fraction of the opportunity to learn and get better.
And doing the financials of that and keeping all of this afloat and keeping a company a going concern. When you just come in for a single instance that doesn't have as much of the context and you're not responsible for the results and you aren't responsible for what led up to that, you kind of just make a fix, you watch it for a little bit, and then you peace out. And you just do that iteratively, you become a solver, but not necessarily a maintainer. And I feel like maintaining a business and keeping it afloat and everything that comes with that, the hardships that come with that, the joys, those hills and valleys is what makes a business person. Now, on the other side, and the original quote is, if you can't do it, teach it, right? And I think that is a disservice to teachers. I feel like teaching ideally should be reserved for people who have experience. And sometimes that's just life experience, and you bring that context into the people that you are teaching, right? So I'll never, ever talk down on teachers. I think that it's one of the greatest jobs you can have. But I feel like a lot of people and a lot of students and a lot of young people especially are jumping the gun, right? And they're skipping the whole experience part, and they're taking this tidbit of experience that they might have had or a lesson they learned and then expanding it to then sell to other people, right? Now people want to have their own marketing agencies and they want to start this business or that business. They want to help people with their SEO. They want to consult on this thing, that thing. And I speak this way because this used to be me, right? I'm not used to, I still fight this every single day. I've had to stop myself many times and say, I am not going to consult. I'm not going to change the startup that I'm trying to create into a consultancy, right? I must build a product. I must build a customer base, right? I need to do all these other steps. I know a thing or two about marketing, but that doesn't mean that I should then go and sell marketing to other people. If I'm so good at marketing, market your company, you know what I mean? Market a startup, build a product from scratch and build it that way, right? And I think that's the scary part that a lot of business students don't necessarily admit or grapple with, is that if you're so good at it, make a company, right? But that's where you kind of face reality and you realize marketing is a lot easier if someone already has a customer base that you can lean off of, or there's a budget that you can lean on and you just charge them for it and then you implement it, right? And this isn't to say everyone should be entrepreneurial. If you're good at marketing and you're like, bro, I'll just get hired to do marketing somewhere, fair enough, you know what I mean? So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm not talking to all people. I'm talking to people who are in university, around the age as me, and immediately want to start telling other people how to do things. And where I'll end off is that always be a little skeptical of anybody who tells you that they have this amazing knowledge and, valuable knowledge about how to do X really, really well. And if you do this thing, man, you'll skyrocket your customer base, or, it'll 10x your money and so on. And it's one thing if somebody's selling that to you and they say, I will implement this into your company. But what you should be really, really skeptical of, is when you go to YouTube or Instagram or TikTok and somebody's telling you, I will teach you how to create an agency that can sell people this thing, right? Anybody who's selling you shovels and telling you, hey, use this shovel and go mine for gold, eyebrows, eyebrow raise, right? Doesn't mean that they're lying to you. Doesn't mean that they're a scammer. It just means you need to be all the more careful. But I'll leave it at that. What do you think? Let me know. in the comments. And honestly, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt because what do I know?